a session timeout
Yeah,
because
yeah. There, something's inactive for a while. It usually just kind of lets it go. Yeah,
a session timeout
yeah,
because there we go. So
yeah,
we
yeah.
are all set live on YouTube, and I will kick us off by saying welcome everyone, people who are watching on YouTube live, if anyone joins us, and later on if people play the recorded video. This is the MBTA's Rider Oversight Committee public meeting of June 27th, 2023. I'm Stefan Wunsch. I'm the co-chair of the Rider Oversight Committee, along with Wig Zamor. For what it's worth, and maybe just so you know, Danny, I'm a resident of Lynn. I'm an 8-minute walk from the Lynn train station, where before the pandemic, I'd be doing the hour and 10 minutes from Lynn to Harvard Square. Post-pandemic, working from home, but still taking the T for as many errands and things as I can. Wig, do you want to introduce yourself to Danny and just make sure your audio is working? That way we can do that too. Good thing that I asked you to do that, because you're unmuted, Wig, but we can't hear you. Do you have another control on your computer?
Yep.
There we go. That's it. Go ahead.
Well, I didn't really. Well, anyway. Thank you for coming today. I'm Wig Zamor. I'm a Somerville resident. Stefan and I are almost original members of this committee. Len actually is an original member of this committee, so it goes back very far. I guess we're all obviously interested in the T as well as transit more generally. And I think it's clear that there are some really long-term challenges in keeping the T in good working order. And whatever we can do to help with that, I think we'd be interested in hearing from you. And then I think also just personally that the transit system has been pretty robust in Boston, and then more recently Cambridge with the Red Line following the transportation plan review, much more recently in Somerville. And I am concerned about the communities in the Lower Mystic up to Lynn, which I think do not have nearly as good transit connections, even though they have a more intense immigrant-based environmental justice population. So let me stop there.
And Len, do you want to just introduce yourself?
Sure.
We already know your audio is working great.
Sure. So my name is Leonard Diggins. I live in East Arlington, and I pretty much ride the Red Line every day from Alewife to the MBTA stop. And so I'll just say that I take the survey that comes out probably once a month. And the one question I always give, the highest rating to is the question, does MBTA care about its riders? Those of us here know that's the case. And I think if there's any message that we should work on conveying to riders is that the T really does care. It may fall short at times, for any variety of reasons, but it does care. And I think it's even more important to get that message across now that we have the move to enact the MBTA communities, law, because one of the things that I hear, coming from Arlington at times, especially people who aren't particularly supportive, is that, well, you want us to use transit, but transit isn't really working for us that well now, and so they kind of use that as a reason, for not putting such an emphasis on creating housing, along transit routes, and unfortunately, people tend to see transit as the heavy rail. In Arlington, we see it also as buses. And as you know, buses are having issues now because of a lack of drivers. And then as you put more cars on the road, then the buses become less reliable. And so as I tell people, it's like it took us a while to get into this situation because we didn't put the resources into it, and now everyone's trying to scramble for the same resources. It's going to take us a while to get out of it, and people are receptive to that. So I think as long as we are straightforward with people, about our ability to solve problems, and really straightforward with people about the time frame, then we don't set unreasonable expectations and then lose trust. So that's it. Thanks.
Excellent. So, Danny, having heard our little introductions, I want to give you the opportunity also to introduce yourself. Particularly, I don't want to get out of order of anything that you had in mind for conversation topics, but I'm always, when I talk to new folks at the agency here in this committee setting, I always want to ask two things that we cover during our time together here, which is, what are some of the really huge successes that you've had? Because a lot of times we find that the successes really go unnoticed, downplayed, unappreciated. So we want to make sure that our committee not only can have concerns from the riders or information provided to the riders about what's happening, but also what has happened, what has gone really well that people might not have heard about. But then also, what do you see upcoming, short-term, long-term, up to you, the classic challenges, opportunities, and going along with that, how can an organization like ours, where we are entirely volunteer, we're more than just transit buffs. I mean, we're not in this to just learn about MBTA for the sake of learning. We actually take it very seriously to be able to give back, whether it's to the agency or to riders, our experience, our expertise, what we've learned, etc. So I'll stop gabbing and turn to you. I mean, again, we're very casual here. We have the formal agenda. We'll get you out of here by 5:45, like you said. But tell us what's on your mind. What comes to mind with all of those things I just mentioned?
First of all, I love that, because oftentimes people focus on the challenges, right? But then again, with our case, our challenges are laid bare. There is nothing I could share with you today which you don't already know. Our voicemails become news articles. Voicemails people leave for a board meeting becomes a news article, correct? Our infrastructure is clear. So there is nothing I could share with you in terms of challenges and obstacles that you don't already know. But I do appreciate, Stefan, the way you asked about what we are proud of, what I'm proud of. I love that. So I want to start off by saying that, Danny Levy, I'm Chief Customer Officer at the MBTA. I've been here for 4 years. I'm sorry, someone is popping into my office. Excuse me. Sorry about that. This is the beauty
no apology
of
needed.
Real live, real time, right?
Exactly. No trouble.
Our success began, I want to say, back in 2019, 2020. My team, when you mentioned Andrew Cassidy, you'll be hearing about it. You'll be hearing from Andrew in the future. And it really was about building a better team. It really was about hearing from riders such as yourselves and others who said to us, when we would host diversions, when we would conduct diversions, they didn't understand why. We told them we were, fixing rails, fixing tiles, but why? And we started building a better chi and giving folks a sneak peek what the work really consisted of. We brought cameras on the scene to look at what we were doing and why we were doing it. And that was tremendous. The feedback that we received from you folks, the riders. We did our first time-lapse video, I recalled, and the folks who tuned in and saw our very first time-lapse video, and the response was incredibly overwhelming. People were starved for information. People were starved for, what exactly are you guys doing, and why are you doing it, and what is in it for us? So for me, my focus was the central theme for me and my team is the customers are central. And the customers are really simple. They want information. They want information and they want to know why. And they have the right to know why. As a frequent rider, I'm a Green Line rider, Lynn, Wig, and Stefan. I experience what you experience. If I'm riding the Green Line and suddenly we stop and I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, why are we stopping? Why are we stopping? And I think if I'm asking, you folks are asking and others are asking, as they should, they have the right to know. And this is where we have to do better. If there's one thing I'd like to do, I'm working on with this new GM in particular, is how do we share real-time information to our traveling public as things are happening? So they're not going on social media searching and coming up with their own ideas or their own whatever. We need to be able to provide in real time. Lynn, you're on that train. Why did it stopped? Not Wig that we're now going to an express train. Why are we now express train? And these are basic, simple requests that I think will make a huge difference. People will be frustrated, as they should. I'm frustrated. And I was sitting in that train. I didn't know what was going on. I did not know. And I text someone and they responded, but I don't have the capability, believe it or not, to make that announcement on the train. So now we need to train our operators, our dispatchers, people on scene to communicate to folks why this is happening. Information is power, right? Simple information so you can plan accordingly.
Do you also work with, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your flow.
It's fine, it's fine.
Oh, okay, I'm just, because you're talking about the information delivery, do you also work with the project teams for, like for Better Bus Project, you know, the Silver Line extent? I mean, do you also work with them for that messaging and that?
We do work with them. We help coordinate. Some projects team we work better with than others, and this is no criticism. Some have consultants they work with, but we do work with the Better Bus team to help articulate the message, to make sure when they're out there getting the message out through the social media team, through the media team, hey, this is happening, and then explaining a little bit behind the scenes through our social media efforts as to why this is happening. But no, we do work with them.
Sorry to jump in like that and interrupt.
Oh, no, not at all. I want this to be a dialogue. I want this to be a conversation. I don't want to just talk at you. I did not prepare remarks. I love the fact this is an rider oversight committee. And I love the fact, Lynn, you mentioned that you're part of our customer opinion panel every month. And although I do appreciate you give us high marks that we care, not everyone feels the same. And I'm going to ask you folks, this is a learning for me. If you think we care, that's great. Thank you. We do, some of us more than others. Why do others not think we care? And how can we better showcase our empathy to our riders?
Well, I guess I'm not sure that people don't care. So I'd like to know, what is the response to that question? And one of the things I'd like to do at some point is talk with the people who do these monthly surveys to get some insights into the results of the survey. The reason I know, though, that you care is because I work with people who work at the T, and I know how much they care about the system. A lot of them could have jobs that pay a whole lot more, but yet they work here and they do their absolute best because they care about the system and they care about the riders. And so as you said, knowledge. You didn't say it exactly this way, but knowledge is power. So I think the more people know the extent to which people at the T really are dedicated towards making it better, the more that they will know that they care. And it's really a matter of how you get the stories out there about the people that work at the T. And it's one of those things that you just have to keep doing. because initially it'll seem like you're not making any progress. It takes a while to build on it. And also, you have, I would say, the new cohort, probably every year. A big part of that is the students coming in each year, for school, and and then of course the new people just getting born. So you have a new set of people who are using the system each time, and it's educating them from square one. So I hope that answers your question.
Where do you get your information about the T?
Well, I kind of know what I'm going to use the T for. If it's a long trip and it's time sensitive, I look up information. I use the trip planner all the time. Otherwise, it doesn't matter so much to me, to be honest with you. I have been riding the new Green Line a lot. Before that, I was mostly riding the buses. I find most of the bus drivers to be quite good. I have been thinking about an odd thing, which I don't know, this may not make sense to anybody, but I subscribe to 4 newspapers, and I try to read the comments in the newspaper articles that I'm most interested in. And these are New York Times, Boston Globe, Lynn Item, Portland Press Herald, which is a consortium of main papers. And what I would say about the comments, and I'm bringing this up because I think it compares with the public in general, is that I'd say about a quarter of the comments are really thoughtful, regardless of position, but they're quite thoughtful. And I'd say at least half of the comments just appear to be the person's general attitude toward life. It's kind of there every day. And, they fall on one side or another, depending on the topic of the news article. But I imagine it's similar for the T. I think people just have I would guess that half the people have embedded attitudes that aren't really so perceptive, or with regard to what they're seeing each day or to changes each day. They're just kind of their general attitude toward the T that goes along with the general attitude toward other aspects of their lives. And I think people kind of get locked into those until something causes them to think and engage. So that may be an odd comment, but I've really been noticing it, especially in newspaper comments. And I kind of see it on the T too, although actually I think it's not as bad on the T. I think people who use the T, whether it's buses or other services, I think they're pretty used to it. And I think honestly, they get along better with the T than most newspaper readers do with the topics they're reading each day. But I do still think there's a lack of engagement, which sometimes is politeness or people are preoccupied with other things in their lives. But it's nice when people are aware of their surroundings and the other people around them and whether they can offer some assistance or not.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to hear more from you folks. I want to hear more from you. Of course, if you have questions for me, I'm here to answer them.
What topic? Well, actually, you have Carl here, and Stella. So okay. Maybe I'm Carl.
Carl, I'm not sure if you might read the email. Danny, as Chief Customer Officer, has all of customer experience, including such things that we were talking before about as the digital outreach on Facebook and Twitter, etc. Under her jurisdiction. But just very quickly, one of the things that I have to share with you, Danny, is that as the current co-chair of this group, I struggle, and I could use information from the agency through you or whomever, about how our organization here can better interface in ways that are useful to the agency. Ever since, again, I'm speaking for myself, I'm not speaking for other committee members here. They may agree, but from my point of view, since the era of the FMCB, which really did bring a lot of transparency forward, it was, I mean, the pre-FMCB, post-FMCB, and now into today's new board, it's a whole new agency. And I personally, as one of the co-chairs right now, have really struggled with how do we fit in with the MBTA as it is now. And so I guess really all I can say, Danny, is I would love to be doing a lot more to facilitate the communications between the agency and the riders, et cetera. And it's for lack of being able to know where to direct to be honest, our skills and efforts.
I welcome the opportunity to better partner, because I see you folks as potential brand ambassadors, marketing term, to help us really communicate, like, what are we missing? For example, we have the Sumner, well, it's not our project, it's MassDOT's highways project on the Sumner Tunnel closure, but yet we have a menu of transit options for our riding public. Are you familiar with them? Have we checked all the boxes? Are you sharing our resources with members of your group, members of your community? How can you assist us in getting the information out? So that's one, part of my portfolio is the in-station teams, those transit ambassadors. The call center falls under my purview as well. In-station call center, customer communications, what you see on the digital screens throughout the system, that falls under my department. What are we missing? We want folks to feel safe riding the system. We rebranded and relaunched the CSAY app with Transit Police. And after doing so, we saw an uptick of people downloading the app and reporting information. That is success. That is success. I mean, we had this app before I started and the numbers are super low. And so we said, let's look at it. What can we do differently? They used it really as after terror, more so for terrorism, right? But we want people to feel safe. We want people to know we care about your safety. We repositioned. It's really about, people seeing things to be our ears and our eyes throughout the system to help Transit Police. Are you familiar with that? Were you aware of this rebrand? Do people know about this app as an example? So Stefan, yes, absolutely. How did this organization work with previous boards? What happened in the course of, I'm sure that the pandemic didn't help, of course, but now that it is a new board, to your point, it is new leadership, we are growing. How can you be partners? You attended our event in Lynn, I believe, Wonderland Station. You've read the reports, all of you on the screen. We are challenged. We cannot meet the objectives, the goal of the Better Best program, network program, if we don't have the bus operators. We can't. And so we get criticized every time we have to change the schedules because we do not have enough people to drive the buses. And the buses, the bus operators, they're entry-level positions. And if they wish, there are other opportunities throughout the T they can get promoted to. But before so, we need the bus drivers. We cannot operate the system. We cannot deliver the schedule that your riding public, you as individuals who ride the system want or deserve. We are competing. This is real truth. We are competing with the gig economy, right? The Ubers, the Lyft. Every day I get home, I see a postcard in my mailbox from the USPS looking for postal carriers. Once upon a time, and you've heard this story, once upon a time, there was a wait list to work at the T. Now we're giving you $10,000 tuition. We're paying you $7,500 to sign on, and we still can't get people to work for us?
So do you know why that is the case?
There's a lot of reasons. Again, the competition is fierce out there. There are companies that did not exist 10 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
And they're providing you flexibility. They're providing opportunity to craft, carve your own hours.
Right. Okay. Right.
We're not there as a transit agency. Today I was struck. I had a meeting we're looking at the hiring. We have multiple meetings a week on our hiring efforts. And I heard from a former bus driver who is now transitioned into a new position. And she told me the story of 8 years she drove as a bus driver, and it's challenging. And there was one day an Uber driver cut her off super, super bad. And she was so enraged. There was a row of taxis that she just wanted to ram the bus on the taxis. How many people are driving cabs anymore? That number's going down too, right?
Right. Yeah. So if it's a flexibility, I mean, that's a hard one, because I was asking because that's a hard one. You can't really solve in a system for that. And a system requires that people be there. The same time. Every day. And the part-time employees generally. It used to be split. Across the day. They do the morning rush and the afternoon rush. Let me rephrase that. I guess they weren't part-time. They were the newer drivers. And that created retention issues. I don't know if we have changed that in a significant way, but it could certainly help with that, but still though, the problem, because I'm one who can explain why things are the way they are too, especially with like bus bunching. That's one that drives people crazy. And you can explain to them why it happens, but it still doesn't. For a lot of people, it still doesn't diminish the effects that they have, that it has on them, significantly. It'll decrease it some, when they understand, but it's still, if the way you have to plan, or the way you have to allot time for how long it could take you to get someplace is based on the longest it may take you to get there, then that becomes a function that determines how people perceive the system. And often what I'll say to people though is that, well, we kind of the same in the car too. If there's a car accident, it's going to take you longer to get there. But still, for some reason, the perception with the car, I think, is different than the train, because I think people just feel that they're in control in the car, even if they're stuck and not going anywhere. Just the fact that they're behind the wheel and they can put their foot on the pedal, gives them a sense of being in control. And I simply put these things out there because I think we just need to know what we're up against, in terms of trying to change the perception of things. And so there may be some ways you can't solve. And then maybe you just come up with something else. It's can we entertain people while they're waiting? It's like with the active video screens, in the new cars. Can we put video on, that is not only informative but maybe entertaining in some way? Just kind of thinking crazy out of the box. But just giving us an alternative for something that maybe we can't solve or more directly.
Yeah,
we don't have audio because it's such a distraction, and then you don't have audio on the screens. I was just thinking no audio. We have thought about short videos, but right now it's really about getting the information our riders want.
Right.
We might morph into some more entertainment, if you will. And I really like that idea. What does that look like? And then you try to be funny. People see it as snarky. Like, we're not. Our brand can't be humorous yet. We do not have enough. I
was thinking informative trivia.
Yeah, that's cute. I like that.
Yeah. It's just like straightforward, just informative trivia. Like you kind of see sometimes when you're waiting, in a movie theater, for the movie to come on.
We have to be careful of our time running out, because we've really got
I can stick around for a little bit longer. Please feel free to
I appreciate that. But just Carl, did you want to ask anything or comment with regard to Danny's responsibilities and her teams of customer experience? You don't have to, of course. But well, if Carl's pondering or while he's unmuting, I just have to add, Danny, for me, it comes down to one word: expectations. And expectations in both directions. I think it's very undercommunicated that the agency has expectations of what the riders will and won't do, should and should not do. Clearly, the riders have expectations of what the agency will and won't do. But I think the gap in a lot of ways when it comes to the expectations is if there's a letdown, if the expectations aren't met either way, in either direction, agency to rider, rider to agency, is anything actionable out of that? I get the impression that generally the riders feel like if their expectations are let down, they have no say in the matter, they have no recourse. I mean, clearly, if the agency's expectations of rider behavior is let down, well, we have transit police. You know, if you're acting improperly, we will call the transit police. We will have an inspector step in. Transit ambassadors can help guide people's behavior. You know, they're obviously not law enforcement, but I think there's an element of setting the expectations for riders and then giving the riders something that they can feel is a tangible action to take if the expectations aren't met. And I'm sure we all struggle with that at one point or another.
What would that look like? What does that look like in your mind?
Well, it seems like a reimagining of customer service to be more able to be nimble to the individual's need. I mean, I don't want to say that, like, you know, big companies like Comcast or AT&T or Verizon's customer service is better than MBTA. I'm not making any comparisons at all, but it does seem like when I call up, for example, AT&T, and I talk to them about my phone bill, or, you know, 6 months ago, I called you up about that. They've got notes, right? I mean, they've got my account, like my you know, Comcast home internet provider can pull up records of, well, I've been with them for this many years and I've had these issues in the past. It seems like the personalization of customer service go a long way. I don't know how that would scale. I'm the first one to say scaling customer service to that degree might be absolutely impossible on a public transit budget, but that's what comes to mind. Go ahead, Wig, please.
Well, I do think it might be worthwhile collecting positive stories about both people at the T, you know, could be bus drivers or whatever, and customers. I just think too many people are inert in a situation where they could easily lend a helping hand. And, you know, I think that goes both ways. And there's so many T riders and there's so many T employees. I think it would be nice to see, you know, a story a week about one or the other behaving well in a irregular situation. You know, I have 3 times been on buses that were lost and going the wrong way. And I just went up and helped the bus driver get back on track. And they were so appreciative. You know, they're just phenomenally appreciative. And, you know, in one case, somebody had done a couple different routes and he confused the two en route. He was late on a shift, and I just helped him get back on the other one. Another time, a bus driver was on a new route and he was way off and heading the wrong direction. Like he was a couple miles off in Somerville. And I got him to Central Square, which is where he needed to go, without any fanfare, just kind of, walking up front and just saying, I think you're off, and this is the way we can correct that. But I know that those kinds of things go both ways. And there are so many people who just sit there and do nothing. I just don't really get it, honestly. There's been a number of slowdowns as Green Lines approach North Station. And if I'm kind of on a tight timeline, I'll just walk up to the front and politely ask, if he or she thinks it would be faster for me to get off at Science Park and walk to North Station. And they're usually pretty candid. They say, yeah, you'd probably save some time. And I just thank them for the information. So if there's any way of encouraging people to be polite and helpful, just in a mild way, in their everyday interaction. And the same goes for riders helping each other, or, you can come up with any number of situations like that. But I don't know. I'm just surprised at people's lack of insight into how they might help a little bit and just acting on that.
I appreciate that, Wig. And first of all, thank you for helping our riders.
It was super rewarding to me. I mean, what better could I do when I'm on a bus than
I wish we knew, because then there's, it would be great to show as examples, to your point, helpfulness, right? Because you mentioned if we can have 1 or 2 positive stories a week. Now, Wig, better than me, I hope, that that's not possible. Sometimes the news outlets, they don't want the positive stories. If you watch our board meetings, we really try to end on a positive note. We try to profile one of our employees. And I want you to stick around and tell me, how many times do you see those stories picked up by the news outlets who cover our board meetings? They cover our board meetings, they attend, and we end on a positive note. But guess what? Those, I shouldn't say often, more often than not, they're not covered. However, there are times, if there is an operator who saved a life, those stories are covered, or returned a missing, theft. That's always another good story that's covered. But the everyday interaction of just pure human decency, being kind to one another. And we have tons of those stories from operators who really love what they do.
Yeah, but I had one yesterday on the Green Line coming back to Somerville after a night meeting at the Logan Office Center. So it was late. And the next station sign on the Green Line train had the same sign continuously, even though it was like 3 or 4 stops past. And I went up to the front, when there was a stop, and I just politely told the driver. And the first time he didn't get what I was saying. And so I explained it again. And then he was really, relieved and grateful that somebody pointed it out, that, it was showing a station that was 3 stops back, 4 stops back, 5 stops back. But the bigger point, I think, is that if you can just slowly get some of those stories out, and I'm not sure how you would do it, it could be a newsletter, or it kind of gets infectious, because there's a lot of decent people who don't say much in the world. And when they come across those kinds of stories, it resonates with those decent people, even though they've been being quiet.
Well, maybe this is where this group can help me with that.
I think so.
And that's a follow-up conversation. And I want to make sure, I have to leave soon, but I want to make sure if Stella, Jordan, if you'd like to add anything before I jump off. But I have to tell you before you begin, Stefan, this is I've taken a lot of notes that I'd love to follow up on with you. Yes, but I do love to keep in touch. Yeah. This newsletter piece, in terms of how can this group help us get out those positive stories, is something I'd really like to focus on moving forward.
Len, I see your hand has been up for a while.
Sorry.
So
Yeah.
No,
No,
no problem.
I'll just quickly say the station ambassadors are really good. They're really good.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. I think
Oh, yeah.
they
They're
put a good
wonderful.
face on the tee, and so yeah. There was something else, but short on time, and so yeah, you turn to Stella. So we'll ask if Stella wants to say something. Stella's from the Boston Region MPO. I work with her a lot as a part of the advisory council.
Yeah, thanks, Len. I don't have anything particular to add to the discussion. I sort of just came to listen, but thank you so much. I mean, it's been really interesting. Danny, great to hear your comments about customer service at the MBTA, and I think one of the things that we definitely hear a lot in our engagement at the MPO is about MBTA services. So certainly a relevant topic for us as well, and hopefully we can connect further at some point and maybe find ways to share some of that information. But yeah, happy to be here, and thank you. This was really interesting.
Thank you, Stella.
I have to emphasize, I mean, there's only been 4 members of the regular committee that you've met tonight, Danny, on this Zoom, and Carl was very quiet, needless to say. But the rest of the 4 of us that were here tonight and the rest of the members are really chomping at the bit for opportunities to be useful. And okay. So we're looking to make the agency and the experience of riding a better one. And we would love to broaden our scope of impact if we can be useful.
I appreciate that. Here's what I want to say. I know you have invited Andrew in an upcoming meeting. Here's what I want to suggest instead. I would like to have my direct reports. I'd love to have a panel of my direct reports, their center of influence, present to your group all at once, so you can fully understand the customer experience team at the MBTA. And in the meantime, I'm going to think about what you shared with me today. And I'd like to follow up with you, Stefan, and others on this call on how you folks can serve as, my word, brand ambassadors for the MBTA. Okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. We are committed to the interactions between the riders and the agency to make everyone have a better experience, both directions.
And I think you guys can be super, super helpful with that. So I have some thoughts percolating in my head. Unfortunately, I have to jump on the tee to head home to my 3 boys. Well, but this was great. I'm so happy to have met this group, and I look forward to a true partnership for both of us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
I'm thrilled. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Talk to you soon again. Bye. Oh, I'm thrilled that you could join us, Stella. I don't want to completely deviate from the agenda, but we had put Danny's time on the agenda as more than we thought that she would need or be able to spend with us. So if I don't know, Stella, would you be up for sort of introducing yourself and telling us what region you're in? I mean, I would love to hear more about you and what your role is on the MPO, because I mean, I hear from Len about those sorts of things, but it's always relevant to us. I mean, and you're bringing a whole new, I want to say, flavor from your experiences.
So I haven't talked specifically about you, Stella, so that's why he's asking that question that way.
Yeah. But I also don't want to put you on the spot. You know, this is your first time joining in any capacity, right?
Stella can handle the spotlight.
You didn't expect to be called on. So, oh my gosh.
No problem. No, I'm happy to join and introduce myself.
I just have to ask really quick. Is that a picture of the Lynn Highland Circuit streetcar behind you? Or is that?
It's actually a Back Bay one.
Back Bay. Okay,
cool. The caption says Dartmouth Street.
Oh, awesome. Cool. Sorry to cut you off. That photo looked a little familiar, but please go ahead.
No worries. Yeah, no, I'm happy to join. A colleague told me about this meeting today, and I work with Len very closely, as he said, on the advisory council to the Boston Region MPO. And I'm also the public engagement program manager there. So, you know, we're thinking about ways that we engage the population of the Boston region, which, you know, overlaps heavily with the MBTA service region as well. A lot of the issues that we talk about when we engage folks are related to transit, obviously. And yeah, I had known about the ROC for a while through Len, but never joined a meeting. I saw tonight that one of the agenda items was related to some of our planning work that's currently out for public comment. So I just thought I'd pop in and say hello to everyone. See if there's any, you know, additional information I can provide about either of those plans or comments. But yeah, happy to be here and happy to explore, you know, further ways of collaboration as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, I just Googled and I found that you're in communications and engagement at CTPS. So I mean, of course, perfect tie-in to Danny, head of all customer engagement. But for the CTPS, for the MPO, I probably have a mistaken impression of what communication and engagement is like. Because to me, the MPO and CTPS are all about communicating and engaging with municipalities. Is that right, or is that incorrect?
So it's a good question. Yeah, so the MPO covers 97 cities and towns in the Boston region. We work very closely with those municipalities.
Yep.
They are represented through both municipal seats and sub-regional groups on our decision-making board. But a big part of the way we engage the region's population as well is just direct public engagement with community groups, advocates, all sorts of other agencies. You know, we feel that that's really a key part of the transportation planning process. And I think, you know, to be honest, it's maybe a perspective that hasn't completely been reflected in the past. You know, I think a lot of transportation decisions going further back have gotten made, you know, without really strong public involvement. So while our board is primarily municipalities and state and regional agencies, we also are lucky to have Len as a representative of the Regional Transportation Advisory Council, which is really, you know, one of the key sort of public engagement activities that we have and you know, forums that we facilitate. And beyond that, you know, the communications engagement team also does a lot of other work. You know, we work on transportation studies that the MPO conducts. We help, you know, spread the word and get people involved in the development of our plans and seek perspectives on project funding and on, you know, long-term planning, like the LRTP, for example. There's a lot of stuff going on. Len can certainly tell you more about the advisory council perspective there as well. But yes, we're seeking to you know, continue expanding our focus outward beyond just the municipalities. To answer your question.
Wait, do you want to ask or comment? Because I have something else I could ask or say, but after you, Wig.
Yeah, yeah, and apologies to people who've heard this before. So I went to about 250 MPO meetings. I think before just about, I kind of stepped away once the Green Line was on track in Somerville, and Len has certainly been 99% of our participation since that time. However, I also started some environmental epidemiology programs with research universities focused on transportation emissions, cardiovascular inflammation, especially for people near highways, that kind of thing. And I am stunned at the lack of understanding within the research universities who do focus on land use and transportation and environment and health, with regard to the fact that regions are the basis for land use and transportation planning in the United States. And I am stunned at the lack of knowledge in that research community that focuses on overlapping topics. And you know, again, forgive the repetition for people who may have heard this besides you, but I was at a 2-day MIT World Real Estate Forum a couple weeks ago, and you know, this is super hotshot stuff. There are people from around the world. There are top professors from MIT, where it's not that easy to kind of hold your own. And they do unbelievable research. You know, they'll go to Nairobi and get every bit of data on how people get around in the city of Nairobi, and then propose a central Matutu bus route system that will complement the Matutus and make, you know, double the efficiency of the transportation in Nairobi. And at the end of the conference, I asked how many of them worked with regional land use and transportation data in Massachusetts or the US, and the answer was 0. None of them knew anything about it. They didn't even know that federal statute requires land use and transportation planning in the US to be regional. They didn't know what RPAs were, you know, they didn't know what the MPO did. They didn't know what MAPC did. It's just stunning to me. So what that means is that the land use and transportation and environment and health data are not being integrated. They're not being used to find hotspots. You know, they're not being used to deal with populations that live 100 feet from highways and have extraordinary health effects. So I mean, what do you think about those disconnects and the lack of our systematic use of all this information?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Wig. Len, I'm sure has some response too, as being sort of part of the decision-making board, but I can just quickly say, you know, I think it's not unique, certainly to the Boston region or Massachusetts. I think RPAs in general have a really hard time getting the word out about what we do and our role in planning and decision making and actual policy and implementation as well. So I think you know, it really underscores an imperative that we do think about often, but definitely need to really stay focused on of doing a better job of getting the word out and educating people about our role in all of this. That's not just the public, it's not just, you know, our close stakeholders, it's also, as you said, the research community and being able to share all of the great research that we on staff do that could contribute to that larger body of work. So yeah, that's a really good point.
Let me just add 2 things and then I'll stop so everybody else can speak. You know, one of our first 5 doctorates just did a study of in his case, aviation noise from the 90 largest airports in the US by every single census block group in the country that was in those 90 metropolitan areas, and an environmental justice analysis. And Rachel Morello-Frosch had done the same thing for surface transportation 10 years ago. I don't see those kinds of connections being automatically made from MPOs or regional land use planning agencies for understanding of hyper-local differences in populations, what the health and environmental effects are on them, and how we go about defending against those. You know, I see the statutory responsibilities being carried out very well, but I don't see the use of the information beyond those boundaries, even when its use might be far more important with regard to the with regard to the corrections needed at certain scales, I mean, I tend to focus on the really near source scales, and we have no federal regulations on ultrafine particles and very few on noise. But those are very large health effects and quality of life effects. And I just see the planning agencies, land use and transportation, so consumed with the statutory obligations, it's really hard to have enough energy or time to do anything else. And so I think that's what's creating these gaps. I mean, that's just a comment of mine, but
yeah, no, that's a great comment. And I think, not to jump the gun here and get into the discussion of our plans and your comments on them yet, but I think that's one of the things that we do think about a lot on staff, is really how do we move beyond just the statutory, the federal requirements that we have as an MPO in our planning process and in our planning work. And I think, you know, that's evidenced in our resiliency program, which has expanded in the past couple of years, our engagement program, which has expanded, our equity program, which is really central to all of the work we do. You know, all of these three are good examples, I think, of where our work does seek to really go much deeper and broader than just the federal regulations that we have, which, you know, certainly we do our best to meet and exceed, but I think, you know, we're also trying to find ways to really expand our practice and bring in best practices and bring in, you know, other insights from other fields and from the public. And so, you know, for our LRTP, for example, we have a new resiliency goal area, which, you know, really, again, seeks to sort of build upon what we've been doing as an MPO for the last several years and long-range planning cycles, in terms of how we address not just, you know, the air quality requirements, but also how do we really incorporate a proactive sense of resilience into our planning in the long term.
Yeah, and what I'm trying to do now is actually just collect the baseline data at points like right now, because you've got it all ponied up, having worked on the certification documents, and see if I can't get that data to the research universities and let the environmental epidemiologists build on top of that data. You know, I don't expect you to be good at collecting ultrafine particle data, for example. You know, we have to do that research at 20 meters by 20 meters. We need to know the pollution level for every pollutant studied in every 20 meter square for every one of the 8,760 hours per year in order to do that research. So it's, you know, it's quite granular to match it up with the health effects. So I'm not looking for you to do that, but right now, but I'm trying to figure out how I can kind of push these data sets together so that they can be collectively, between the data sets that you and MAPC have and, you know, other government entities, and then the research scientists' ability to use them. I'm trying to see if I can get more productivity out of that than beyond the things that you really have to spend your whole careers on, and I know all of your time on. Anyway, I've got to stop there so other people can talk.
Yeah, well, always happy to connect further about that, Wig. I think, you know, we're always looking for ways to incorporate new data and new ways of analyzing things into our work, and certainly goes both ways as well, you know, whatever we have that we can share. So I think definitely a good thread to keep pulling on.
Thank you very much.
So Stephanie, anything you want to say or ask? You're all set? Okay.
I think so. Yeah. Although I will just mention one quick thing, because I had it handy, and this is just for fun, nothing critical. The photo behind you reminded me very much of this one, which is of the very first electric streetcar in all of Massachusetts, which in 1888 started running up and down the street right outside my window. I'm very proud of that fact. It's a complete coincidence that I live right along the route of the very first electrified streetcar in all of Massachusetts, verified by multiple sources. This photo, by the way, was taken about maybe 100 feet up the street from where I am now. And that photo behind you reminded me very much of, I thought it was, I couldn't see the horses at first, but anyway, that's why I asked. I might get a kick out of that.
That's great.
Very cool. Yeah.
So I'm not going to take claim to fame, but it's fun for me.
Yeah. Well, so maybe we can craft what you said into a general statement, in the in our comment letter, for the LRTP, because that's a broad-ranging document, and so you can maybe just say that is something you like to see us work on, as an agency, in the upcoming years, make it a goal maybe make it something to consider making a goal in the next next iteration of the LRTP.
Yeah, I did bring this up. You might have been at the meeting. David Moeller was running it. Tegan was on vacation. It was before the last push. And I asked David for all the TAZ data, and he said, sure, just go ask Tegan for the data. And I haven't had a chance to really get back. I did go in last Thursday, but there was really nobody working on site.
You can just send an email. Yeah, give me your email address. That's probably the best way to get in touch with people.
Yeah, I did roust somebody who was kind of in one of the few people at CTPS, and I did get some emails, and I will follow up on that. I'm looking to employ this stuff almost immediately. I mean, I have really good environmental epidemiologists ponied up and ready to go, not just on surface transportation, but aviation as well. And you may know about the Volpe noise model, that's very granular. One of our doctorates is at Volpe. He's the guy who did the 90 city study. A couple of them are at BU. One's a senior scientist at Health Effects Institute in Boston, the top air pollution accountability group in the world. So I'm looking to try to connect these things soon, but I also would be happy to do exactly what you just suggested, Len, and suggest more cooperation going forward, just the way you suggested it.
Yeah. I mean, it's the integration that's difficult, because it requires someone else to do it, because it's not like people in any given job are just hanging around with extra time, and so generally this has to be made someone's responsibility, and either they replace it doing it, with something else that they were doing, or someone is hired to do it.
Yeah, and that's why I ask, when the data is there collected and unified and QA/QC'd as it is right now. I used to do this with Scott Peterson. I used to get a full year of TAZ data every once in a while from Scott. And Scott actually was in some of the academic papers that we wrote with that data.
Yeah. Well, like I said, email Tegan, if and you can CC me on it if you want. I think I know who she will put you in touch with, but really it should go through her to that person, and then once you establish communication with that person, they can give you a sense as to how to efficiently or appropriately communicate with them.
And how this rounds out is you use the relational table of the TAZs to the census block groups. And even though we have noise at census block level, the census block groups have all of the SES data from the national agencies, so and the state. So once we do that conversion from traffic analysis zones to census block groups, that's a pretty good foundation for local analysis at a comprehensive take on it.
Right.
Wait, what is SES?
Oh, I'm sorry, socioeconomic, like jobs and,
Okay.
income
Got it.
and, other, all that kind of data that will really point you to where the energy should be put into helping a little more than we've been doing in the past.
Okay.
I mean, go ahead.
No, after you.
No, I also want to change topics. Go ahead.
That's okay.
Okay. No, I just wanted to make sure. Is it socioeconomic status? Yes. SES?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I knew the acronym correctly.
Yeah, I'm sorry. SES
Okay.
is just kind of shorthand for all the population information.
Sure. No, I got it now. Yep. Thank you. So yeah, go ahead.
So the annual cycle, is pretty demanding, and it really doesn't leave much time for anything else. And at every fourth year where you're doing the LRTP, the long range transportation plan, on top of it, it becomes particularly demanding. And then if you add the certification of the MPO, which happens every 4 years too, then that really takes staff resources. But just the board's resources. As it is, twice a month, we're having meetings that are on the order of 3 months for our board meeting, just the board meeting, and then you have 3 subcommittee meetings. One of which, the UPWP, starts meeting once a month and then twice a month. From the beginning of the year, then there's the administration of finance. That's quarterly. That isn't terribly demanding. And the congestion management air quality committee, that's probably the least demanding. But still, just the board meetings twice a month, 3 hours. For people who have jobs on top of that, it's pretty demanding. And then if you want someone who isn't working in the industry, and so then has to put that even on top of their job, that becomes a situation where it's really hard to imagine how just someone off the street is really going to be able to fully engage. And so the question then is, from what you consider reasonable interaction, engagement, what kind of useful information can you get from folks? And so that's a real challenge.
And that's why I just ask for the data once it's complete.
Oh no, this was different. This was a whole different topic. Wig, it wasn't related to what you brought up at all.
Okay,
so yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it wasn't related to what you said at all.
Just one last point on this.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know what conformity means in transportation conformity.
Well, I would say most people. If you're saying people in general,
I think
if you're gonna narrow people down to people in the industry, then that's a surprising statement, perhaps. But it depends on what sector of the industry, right?
I think most people don't know what conformity means.
Yeah, and I agree with that.
I'm not sure what conformity means.
It's conformity on the U.S. on the U.S. air pollution regulations.
So yeah. So is that the only conformity? Because conformity is a pretty general word. Are there other?
That's what conformity means under federal regulation.
Is that the only regulation in which the term conformity applies?
When I put the state on conformity probation and forced the green line to be done, it had only to do with air pollution. I don't honestly. It was.
What about What about ADA? Does there any conformity with access?
Well, ADA is certainly an area of law. I don't know if the term I don't know how broadly I don't know if the term conformity is used for multiple issues in multiple places.
Right.
I think we use the term specifically for air quality conformity, but I know we use the concept in other places, but I think the term in particular in our planning work is for that. Yeah.
It came from the Clean Air Act of 1970.
Right. Yeah. So now then that's you're narrowing that down to the MPO. So I hear you. So yeah, I don't know how many people on the MPO would know that. Yeah.
Oh, and it's not a quiz. You know, I just anyway. The problem with this is that we have focused on regional because of PM 2.5 and ozone. That's not where the most serious air quality and health issues. They're right next to the highways and the other large sources, and they're an order of magnitude larger health impact. And now we are, as we should be, moving to the third scale, which is global and climate. But I am concerned that we go back and pick up those people that we keep slaughtering because of the high exposures to the primary pollutants. That's not something that we, that the ROC has to do. I'm just explaining what my interest was in the information.
Yeah, well, if you want to help me put that information in the ROPS letter on the LRTP, that'd be great. I would have to count on you to do it because I think you can phrase it better than I can. I think if I tried to do it on my own, it would be inadequate. But I think in general, anything that is slow acting and is perhaps combined with other things in order to have an effect just doesn't get the attention that other things like traffic congestion or people getting killed in auto accidents or cyclists getting killed with collisions with cars. That's much higher profile, and that tends to be that just grabs people's attention much greater. But I think your point is a good point. But I think it just means that perhaps it needs a higher profile, which is just harder to create because of the slow acting nature of the problem.
Yeah, it's more than, in this case, it's really the difficulty of the research. This research is 500 million times the spatial temporal density of the Harvard 6-city study, which is the most famous air pollution study in US history, and caused the regulation and rapid improvement on regional fine particles. But most environmental epidemiologists prefer to focus on PM 2.5 because it is so bloody easy.
Right.
But it's not what explains these health effects of the people next to the highways or the other similarly scaled, airports are Logan's the same. But anyway, I don't mean to belabor it. I just trying to explain where I was coming from.
Right. Gotcha. All right. Well, the goal is for the ROC either to submit letters, comment letters on UPWP and or the LRTP either independently or provide input that I can give to the advisory council. And so if you want to authorize me to work on that, I will. And I really won't be able to get back to folks before our next meeting, but I think you can trust me not to say the wrong thing. I may not say enough, but that's because I just don't want to say the wrong thing, and so like I said, it'll really be a function of how much time and energy I have as to whether we do a different letter, and also depend on what the advisory council does, because if I can't make our letter different in a meaningful way, then I won't, because it's not for us. We're not going to have a letter just to have a letter,
Yeah.
So yeah.
That all sounds good, Len.
All right.
Thank
So
you.
I appreciate any input from you, Wig. So anything you want to write, you can write as much as you want. I'll read it all, and then I can extract and put it into the letter.
Len, I will try to send you stuff. And I know we've got a little bit of time. I looked at the deadlines before the meeting, but I will try to send you stuff on a timely basis and not make it too long.
Sure. Well, the more you send them, the more I have to extract. And for the LRTP, you can get that to me by not the end of this week, but the end of the following week.
Okay.
I can send you a reminder. For the UPWP, if you want to make comments on the studies in the UPWP, you might want to do that too, because you might want to look at the universe studies that were there, and I continue to link to that if you want, and then see the ones that were chosen, and then either suggest that different studies would have been chosen, or it may give you some ideas of studies to suggest for the next universe. And this could be your opportunity. This could be your opportunity to suggest the first study for the next year's universe. Just imagine that if that was put in the letter, the comment letter, and people go, we knew it had to be WIG. Yeah.
Well, honestly, my general goal of using this really well put together information when it's put together for additional uses, I mean, that's as good a goal as any, Len, but I'll think about it and try to get you something. And that doesn't really require anything other than realizing that we maybe can get more use out of all this good time that people have put in and all the QA/QC on the data. Right.
Yeah. Well, like I said, take an email if you want, CC me. And I think that's the best way to get in touch with Tegan. She's very responsive, and so I think if you send an email, if you send an email today, if you don't have a response by tomorrow, you'll definitely have it by Thursday. That's just the way she responds.
Okay, I'll get it out in the next day or two. I had I had 12 vials of blood drawn today. A couple of them huge.
I wouldn't have guessed. Just imagine if you had that blood. Can you imagine, Stella, if you had that blood still? I mean, it's like the information download would have been like twice the rate.
I skipped a couple other tests that I can get tomorrow just by walking in. So that's what I'm going to do.
You're super WIG.
No, I'm not. I don't want to be super. I just want to be regular.
All right. Well, Stella, you hang around if you want. If you want to leave, we won't be offended. So we're just gonna.
I agree.
Talk a little bit. Okay.
Before we leave the UPWP and LRTP completely, I'm suddenly unclear on the actual comment deadlines because I'm looking. It seems like I'm seeing on the website UPWP deadline is July 7.
Yes.
Right. But then there's another, is it LRTP deadline July 16? Is that what I'm...
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. One has a 21-day comment period, the other one has a 30-day comment period.
Okay. Excellent. Well, for the record, so that it's in the video, draft available for review and comment until July 7, and that is the UPWP, which is this
Unified Planning Work Program.
And I will put this into the Zoom chat and into the YouTube chat as such. And then I'm seeing also that the LRTP, if I'm getting it right, is this one.
Yep.
Right. Okay.
So one thing I'm going to say, because I don't think I can bring myself to write it in a letter. Certainly not for the Writer Oversight Committee or the Advisory Council. I don't think I can bring myself to write it in a letter on my own. But the pictures are great. I just wish we knew what we were looking at. They give the credit to the photographer, but sometimes with the picture you just don't know what you're looking at. Sometimes it's just a little bit abstract, but sometimes it's like. But if I knew what that was, I mean, I would just be a little. I feel a little more satisfied, and there's some other ones where you're looking at something. So like a cityscape, it's like, okay, it's Boston, I understand. But some of them, I think are just kind of interesting. I kind of like to know, but I think maybe they're stockish. They might be stockish pictures, and so.
Note taken, Len. I will bring this back
so like that one. It's like so where is that? I know that's on the Green Line somewhere because you can see a Green Line there, but it's like,
Isn't that Brookline Village?
We see. I don't know. You may know. I don't know.
I believe that's the big new municipal center. That's so like Huntington Avenue is like off to the right.
It's cool. I mean, because I used to get around a whole lot more before the pandemic. It's amazing how little I get around now. Every time I go to Boston, someplace I haven't been in a while, it's like there's like so much construction that's been going on, in the city over the last 4 years. It's like, where am I? Like, what is that? No, so we don't need to know who he is. Okay, yeah. So don't go crazy on me. So and maybe not that one, but there's some
That's
others.
South Station. Yeah, I mean,
Um,
yes. But I see your point. Yeah, that would be a nice element.
but they have really good photos, but it's like I can understand it being like a step too far. It's like I got the pictures in, and if they don't give information as to what you're looking at, then certainly I don't expect anyone to research it. And you know what? Maybe I could just like pop the thing into an image search in Google, and then I know. I mean,
Yep.
so I always say like the next step to asking a question, is figuring out how to answer the question yourself. So so Stella, if you do bring that up to staff, don't associate me with it. Okay. Now that's a cool shot.
It'll be my own idea.
Yeah.
No, it's a good point though.
Yeah.
I can.
That's a really cool shot. I think I know where it is. That's the kind of shot I would take. So I love that shot. That's really, really good shot.
You can walk there. I believe that it's not taken from a boat.
Right, or a drone. Yeah.
That's between North Point and North Station.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. No, that's a good.
North Station.
That's a good shot. Yeah.
Yep. And all that concrete work that you see is all new since the big fire at North Station that knocked out service. What was that? The 80s? Jonathan Belcher would be able to tell us that. But yeah, the drawbridges are just out of shot here. The North Station drawbridge is just off to the side here. Okay. For what it's worth,
yes,
I would be happy to team up with either of you gents if you wanted to do a collaborative authoring writing session on such a letter. I am definitely not equipped to produce anything at all useful single-handedly, because I know my limitations and this is not my forte. But if you wanted to schedule a time to have me on a Zoom to either talk about concepts, comments, particular language, I'd be happy to do that.
Sure. So if you're available on Friday, that could work for me. And so I would say, so if you want to do it, we can do it this Friday and then the following Friday. And this one for the UPWP and the next one being for the LRTP.
That's a good idea.
And I could, a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour. Read whatever you want in the documents. All right. They're kind of long, but read what you want. And then we can talk about what you read, because I'm going to assume you're going to read what you find most interesting. And then it'll be interesting to see what you think of is most interesting, and then how you comment on that. And I'm really interested to see, what you find interesting.
UPWP first, right? Because that's
UPWP, yeah. But I will give you one hint on the UPWP. For what's most germane to this UPWP would be Chapter 4 that has the studies that we selected, and that starts at section 4.6. Okay, so there are 4 studies that were selected, but then the rest of it, I say, check it out, and then comment on what you want. The LRTP, I think, will be a more interesting document on which to comment, and a more meaningful document on which to comment, simply because it is every 4 years, and it does encompass it. It does encompass such a large time frame.
That sounds
great. All right, cool.
For the record, Len, I on this Friday, the 30th, I have literally a 15-minute morning meeting and a 15-minute afternoon meeting. So the chances are, if you were to suggest a time, the chances are very good that I'd be open.
Yeah. So
because my day is.
Yeah. All right. Fine.
How cool is that to have just 2 15-minute meetings on a Friday?
Yeah, I tend to keep Fridays blank too, and so but this is special, and so maybe we can aim for like 10:30ish, but I can send you email. Would that work for you, Wig?
That sounds good.
If you prefer later to have more time to read, we could do like 3:30ish. Which we prefer, 10:30ish or 3:30ish?
It doesn't really matter.
We'll start off with 10:30.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, let's start 10:30.
Okay.
And then we can do another one in the afternoon if you're not exhausted by
No, I have other stuff I need to do, so just one. So yeah.
Stella, I'm a bit much to handle and for long periods of time. Yeah, and I admit it. Yeah.
But he has an adorable partner, who's just a wonderful person, who's like the big deal in Lent.
Oh,
She's
my
like,
wife. Oh, yeah. My wife has been getting absolute an absolute flood of response from a huge event that she coordinated at the museum just this past Saturday, where we had the mayor, several members of the city council, we had some of our state legislative delegation, lots of folks from Disabled American Veterans and Sons of Union. I mean, very support disabled veterans, gathering support and raising funds for needed veterans. And the best part was it brought attention to the museum, which has been underfunded for about 40 years. So yeah, big win. But anyway, while we have Stella, I'm wondering if we should move on to the capital and finance subcommittee report, because that's probably more germane to what Stella might find interesting. You don't have to say, Stella, but I was thinking, since you're here.
Well, as you may recall, we didn't talk a whole lot, about decks that were presented. There weren't a whole lot that had been presented, but then we spent a lot of time talking about the possibility of doing this MBTA university thing, and what staff people we could pull together to help with that. And so we did probably more planning for full rock meetings than we did the subcommittee meeting. So yeah. So I need to go back and catch up on some of the decks, but I'll do that at the next CIF meeting.
Okay. Well, I'm prepared to say a little bit about what the other subcommittee did. I mean, unless Stella, you want to know, more about what our two subcommittees do. I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot again.
I guess a little overview would be helpful. I mean, I can make some assumptions based on the name, but would love to hear more.
Yeah. Well, Len and Wig are the prime movers in that finance and capital subcommittee. You want to?
Yeah. Well, this is capital investment and finance means so there used to be two independent committees, and then we combine them. And so one looks at the teach plans for capital investment, and one looks at the finance, which is more operations, operating budget. So, and in that meeting, more so than other meetings, we tend to just go through the presentations to the board, and used to be the FMCB, now the board directors. So that's about it.
Well,
nothing groundbreaking. Yeah.
Well, but to be honest, nothing really earth-shattering in the other subcommittee either. It used to be a separate one, if I'm not mistaken, right? We used to have a separate marketing and communications subcommittee, separate from operations,
right? But
they were so alike and with similar interests that we merged those together. Over a decade ago, probably. Yeah. It just as an aside. Did any of you gents realize that next calendar year will be the 20th anniversary of the Rider Oversight Committee?
Yes, I did.
Holy mackerel. Okay.
We'll have to invite Darren to that. I ran into Darren, who's very much into the MBTA university idea too.
So good. Yeah. And I think I told you on May 6th at Wonderland, where I met Danny in person. Darren was there, and Darren was, I don't want to say overjoyed, but he was very happy that I was there. And among other things, we're now at least known to Secretary Piandaka. Our organization is now known to the Secretary of Transportation, so that's good. But all right, I'll jump into a quick summary for the record of what we did in the subcommittee for marketing, communications, and operations. And I believe it was probably 90% talking with Jonathan Belcher about the publication of the annual inventory. Is
Yeah,
that
that's
about
right.
what you remember?
Yeah, you pretty much went through it. You had it highlighted all.
Yep.
And Jonathan answered all your questions.
Yep. I got to call this out. I don't believe I'm violating their copyright by showing any of these pages in this recorded Zoom, but I certainly apologize if I am. It's not my intention. It's from a nonprofit to an to an oversight group. But if anyone of the four of us on this Zoom right now is not subscribing to the trivial $16 a year to receive roll sign 6 times a year, you really should. The news and information is absolutely top notch, accurate as all get out because it's done by Jonathan Belcher. This particular issue is the recap of inventory going back 12 months, covering from February of 2022 to February 2023. And I'm not going to go item by item for all the things that I called out or that we discussed, but I will just point out that there are details in this annual publication that cover not just the equipment, but the history of the equipment, the specs, what there is for registered work cars. I mean, in other words, things that are not just your average like bucket loader or pickup truck. You know, if it's an actual railroad vehicle, jet snowblower, it's captured here. Service notes, problems, derailments, all the history of what happened in the past 12 months, plus even some of the background going back before the last 12 months as it's relevant. This publication is absolutely indispensable. The highlights, like I said, I'm not going to go through all these yellow that I highlighted because we went through it at the subcommittee, but Jonathan was able to address each one of these. Much of what I highlighted is talking about new car acceptance, problems with the new cars, some of the, well, for example, derailed and struck the tunnel wall. That particular Green Line car is out of service. I called out one of the things about the new Chinese made CRRC is the brand, the company name, how their car bodies are stainless steel, and stainless steel is not easy to repair. I forget exactly where it is, but
Right.
when a stainless steel car body vehicle gets damaged, it is probably going to be out of service for a long time because of this very specialized requirements for repairing stainless steel. So pros and cons to having such a material for these new vehicles. We talked about some of the snow clearing equipment, how the agency is going focusing much attention on generic snow clearing equipment, skid steers, which I believe is a more generic word for something that some people might call bobcat. If you're familiar with these little single operator with a couple of joysticks and you can spin around in a tight area and it's got a scoop, and I believe that's what a skid steer is. We talked about how the agency is favoring those greatly over anything that's actually mounted on rails because of the increased flexibility of, it's got high rate capabilities. It says you can get it on the tracks, but you're not limited to running that snow clearing equipment on the tracks, and you're also not limited to any particular line. So that's huge, so that's that right there. Snow clearing equipment that's not stuck on one line or not even stuck on the rails, huge. That's a great improvement. We talked about the new coaches that are already being delivered. We talked about some of the future possibilities for battery and diesel powered combined hybrid locomotives. And then we got into some of the route details with Josh, which was huge. And we spent also a lot of time talking about this chart and how well, Josh, case in point, thought that this was really not good data. I don't want to put words in his mouth, as he's not here. I don't think I could do his opinion justice, but Jonathan made the case that this is really just designed for a layperson to be able to say, oh, well, the 31 has got more service than the 34, or the 66 has got a lot more service than the 61. And it's for general comparisons. And I personally feel that this compilation of routes is extremely useful for those who are not directly engaged in the transit industry, as we are, and as a lot of transit fans are. So I think that's probably it. I highly encourage, I mean, if I was in a position to demand that members of this organization, members of this committee subscribed to the roll sign, I would, but I mean, that's not fair. I can't do that, of course.
I think that's a sign that you've been chair of this committee for too long.
Draconian measures.
You're a little dictator.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Well, Stefan, if you could read the LRTP and the UPWP in half, with half the level of attention that you gave that, I think what you would have to say about it in a potential comment letter would be very helpful.
That sounds great. Yeah. I'm looking forward to Friday.
So, and I would say, read the chapters in the order of interest, because they are really independent. So it's to a certain extent they build on each other, but it's not like a novel or anything where you're completely lost, or that you ruin the surprise if you go to the end first. So read it in order of interest, and maybe relevance, to making a comment. And by that I mean like the history of the MPO or the structure of it may very well be very interesting to you. And certainly if it is compelling, by all means, read it first. But it wouldn't be particularly, it probably wouldn't be the thing that you make a comment on, because.
And for the record, for just to say it so that it's recorded on YouTube for posterity, the feedback on the LRTP and the UPWP is not just to be from folks like us on an organization like the Rider Oversight Committee. Anyone in the transit, actually, you don't even have to be in the service area, do you? Are you officially able to submit feedback even if you're outside the MPO service area?
Yeah, absolutely. We welcome comments from anyone and everyone. We collect zip codes there just to aggregate that data and see who's commenting and from where. But we certainly welcome comments from anywhere. And feel free to reach out to me as well. If you have any questions, I can drop my email in the chat.
Very cool. And again, for the record, the LRTP comment deadline July 16, and the UPWP, which is this one, I'll scroll very fast. This deadline is
July 7th.
July 7th, thank you. Okay. Yep, I should go back to the home page, and there it is, July 7th. Okay. And actually, where's the comment form for the UPWP? Is that linked in here?
It's not linked in the document itself, but if you go to the home page of the MPO website, and you go to the Stay Involved drop down on the top bar there.
Feedback? Or
yes.
Oh.
Feedback. So here you can select whatever you want to comment on, and we always welcome comments on anything there.
Okay, cool. Just to make sure I'm putting both feedback pages into Zoom and into the YouTube chat. Excellent. Thank you very much, Stella. I've got one quick thing to fall under. You could kind of call it new business,
Yeah.
I suppose. Just for complete transparency, and also, just to show that it was out there. This was a relatively detailed, quite well, even for me, eye-opening from my own city. This was from the Globe just 2 days ago, the 25th. This is available online. I don't know if you have to subscribe. I'm a Globe subscriber, but this article, 3-page article, talking about what it has meant to Lynn's transit-focused development to have the commuter rail station closed down rather out of the blue. I mean, we knew that the Lynn commuter rail station was crumbling, but I think it took everybody by surprise last fall when the MBTA suddenly said, "Oh yeah, we're going to be closing the station for several years at the in like a month or two," and but until I read this article about my own city and transportation focused planning, I didn't even realize that there have already been a notable number of businesses and residential plans that have either been put on hold, or in one case that it's mentioned a business that actually said, no, we're just not gonna set up shop here because there's no train station for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, so the residential projects that have stopped downtown are mostly because of the affordable requirement, which is fairly new and could easily be met in Somerville or Cambridge or most parts of Boston, but it puts those Lynn projects underwater. So the larger developers from Boston who were interested, I mean mid-size, like, and including South Boston Waterfront, have walked because of the affordable. There really needs to be some funding for affordable housing that's not just a percent of a market rate project in those cities where the margin is much less than in other cities.
Okay. That's not what I got out of this article, though. I thought that...
Yeah, that's fine. But I worked with a guy who had full plans for 6 months. I mean, every floor plan of every building.
Yeah.
And once he couldn't get some vesting before the affordable went into place, I've never heard from him again. He told me that he was done. He couldn't make the numbers work. And this is an extremely experienced developer from the South Boston Waterfront.
I'm going to ask someone that I know who's also a real estate developer in Lynn about this.
And you can look at Procopio, right? Procopio has abandoned putting housing on that big triangular parcel that's near one stairway up to the commuter rail station. Wait,
I'm sorry. Say that again, please.
Well, Procopio had done 5 downtown multifamilies, right?
Yeah.
In of different sizes and different styles, from 4 or 5 story all the way up to 8 to 10 story.
Yeah.
And that, as soon as that percentage requirement went in, they abandoned the idea of housing on that big parcel. And they were your best developer by far.
Yes, they were. That's the first I'd heard that.
Well, if you go look at that, that's a huge parcel. It is the best parcel downtown.
Oh, yeah.
And it's being advertised for biotech. Whether they can get biotech there or not, I don't know. But they stopped all work on that parcel right away.
So is that a Lynn requirement? That's a Lynn requirement, right?
Yeah,
As opposed to
a Lynn requirement that went into effect in the past 12 months.
No.
And it would be easy in the wealthier cities, whether it's commercial wealth or residential wealth, it would be very easy to hit the Lynn requirement. But in Lynn or a few other towns, that can't get the same residential price, they're not going to be able to make the project financeable.
So what percentage affordable is it? 10%?
I think it's 10%. I don't think it went to 20.
All right, interesting.
In Somerville, it's 20.
All right. It'd be interesting to see what was the thinking in the planning department at Len, for that percentage, and so I'm sure that they had parties that said it wouldn't work and parties that said it would work. I'd be interested in seeing the arguments of both sides at some point, but no time soon, because I got like a couple of comment letters to focus on. So.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that, Wig, about that being site being abandoned.
No,
although,
they still own the site and they still want to develop it, but they're not.
Oh.
They're not looking at housing.
Oh! I see. I gotcha. So it's not going to be vacant. It's not going to be residential.
Well,
okay.
It depends how long it takes to get a lab on that large
Okay.
scale to Lynn.
Yeah.
Lynn is not, Lynn is not Kendall Square.
Right. And this is it right here for the record.
Yeah.
And I'm particularly appalled that it's not going to be residential or it's going to be still idle for a long time, because this was the source of I'll just say the Lynn Historical Commission was not consulted, and there were a couple of buildings that were taken that had absolutely fantastic vintage late 19th century, early 20th century frontage. I mean, absolutely just gorgeous. I don't know the right terminology, the architecture that was taken, and there was just shy of like pitchforks and torches going towards City Hall over that, right in this property. And now, okay, well, anyway, sorry, my local focus is showing through, which is not my intent for this committee meeting. But thank you, Wig, for mentioning that.
So can I motion to adjourn?
Absolutely, I will second that.
All right. Well, so long, folks.
Yep.
Thank you. Thanks for coming, Stella.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I don't see that
Thanks
there's no attendees in the Zoom, and there is no one on YouTube. So yep, we can call it, and see you folks probably
Friday.
Hopefully Len and you, Wig, in 2 weeks for the subcommittee.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And thank you, Stella.
And Friday. All right. So long.
Yeah,
Bye.
yeah. See you Friday as well. Yep.
I'll send the Zoom invite. So long.
Cool.
Bye.
Thank you.